There ain't no future unless we build it now. There ain't no future unless we build it now. United States, Africa, we salute ya. A new state of mind, I introduce ya. Close your eyes and visualize the rise of a new paradigm. Solar powered skyscrapers.
Welcome to the Africa Must Unite podcast, a podcast dedicated to inspiring African people worldwide to rise up, organize, and struggle for Pan-Africanism, a unified, liberated, socialist Africa, the only permanent solution to the exploitation and oppression of African people, no matter where they happen to be born or happen to live in the world. Now please, welcome the hosts of Africa Must Unite.
Africa's future is now, so get ready.
Greetings, African people. My name is Brother Melvin.
And I am Sister Tasha.
And we are the Pan-African Socialist Party, and this is Africa Must Unite podcast number 48, Tasha. How about that?
Yes, and we are closing in on 2021 with our last calendar date.
Right, so this being our 48th podcast means we've done this now for 4 years, so I think that's something that we can be proud of, and hopefully the people who tune into our podcast have had, a great time learning new information and just being a part of what we've been able to share over the last 4 years. So we appreciate you all. But like we do at this time, when we begin our podcast, we want to talk about the calendar dates for the month of December. Okay. So starting in December, I want to start on December 3rd. It's the first issue of the North Star newspaper published by Frederick Douglass in 1847, as well as Gwendolyn Brooks' African Poet. She passed in 2000. On December 4th, Mark Clark and Fred Hampton, Black Panther Party leaders, were assassinated by Chicago police in 1969. On December 5th, Nelson Mandela, activist and first president of Azania, South Africa, died in 2013. It was the first All-African Peoples Conference held in Accra, Ghana in 1958. And it was the National Council of Negro Women, founded in 1935 on December 5th. Moving all the way to December 10th, we have Namibia Women's Day. Dozens of women were killed and wounded during mass protests in 1954. As well, on December 10th, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. accepted the Nobel Peace Prize in 1964. On December 12th, Kenya gained independence in 1963. On December 13th, African warrior Ella Baker, political activist, was born in 1903. As well, kind of surprisingly, she also passed on December 13th in 1986. Moving to December 18th, Steve Biko, leader of the Black Consciousness Movement in South Africa, was born in 1946. On December 19th, Carter G. Woodson, African historian and father of Negro history, was born in 1875. December 21st, Thomas Sankara, Pan-Africanist and president of Burkina Faso, was born in 1949. On December 24th, Libya Political Independence Day is recognized for 1951, beginning Libya's political independence. December 25th, I know most people would think this is time for us to celebrate Christmas, and we recognize that for our African brothers and sisters who recognize Christmas. But for us, Ahmed Ben Bella, Algerian socialist revolutionary and first president of Algeria, was born in 1916. As well, Black Christmas boycott of holiday holiday in remembrance of those who died in South African struggle was started in 1984. December 26th, we recognize as the first day of Kwanzaa, and we celebrate Umoja, which represents unity. Is also the day that Mozambique proclaimed this day as Family Day in 1982. December 27th is our second day of Kwanzaa, it's Kujichagulia, representing self-determination. Also on December 27th, 50,000 slaves revolted in Jamaica, and 500 were murdered in 1831. December 28th, our third day of Kwanzaa, is Ujima, which is collective work and responsibility. December 29th, fourth day of Kwanzaa, which we represent Ujamaa, which is cooperative economics, but is also the day that Shaka Ana Diop, our African anthropologist and political activist, was born in Senegal in 1923. And on December 30th, fifth day of Kwanzaa, Nia, purpose. And then finally, our last day of the calendar year, December 31st, which is the sixth day of Kwanzaa, which is Kuumba, creativity, is also the day that Amy Jacques Garvey was born in 1895. Those are our incredible days to remember for the month of December. So yeah, how about that? A lot of important dates for December. So before we get into this, we know this is our final podcast for the year of 2021. This year we've looked at heeding the words of the warriors, guided messages to uplift African people. It's been an incredible year. We've learned a lot, been a lot of different experiences for us, information to share to help fuel us in moving forward in this struggle. So we kind of look back over the year, Tasha. We spent this year highlighting the words of some of our most committed African warriors in an effort to provide all with the motivation, guidance, and fuel to continue this struggle to uplift African people worldwide. So we've talked about our identity as African people. We've discussed who our enemy is. We understand that to be capitalism and global imperialism. We've looked at our objective as a Pan-Africanist organization. We've looked at our strategy of organization, discussion of our tactics, which at this time is political education. We've highlighted our leadership. We debated the role of culture, expressed the critical role of women, shared the potential power of our youth. We've proven the exploitative relationship between capitalists and workers. And now we're coming back to discussing why Pan-Africanism, Sister Tasha. So let's take a look at that. Let's talk about why Pan-Africanism.
Well, Brother Melvin, as stated in our calendar, and as the Pan-African Revolutionary Socialist Party, that's a really good question. So we always talk about why is this so important? Why is it significant to me? Well, worldwide socialism will ultimately help cure the problems experienced by people around the world as a result of capitalism's negative effect. However, for African people, though, the quickest cure is Pan-Africanism, a united socialist Africa. So instead of waiting years and years for institutions to be changed to guarantee fairness to all, no matter what their skin color is, it's important that Pan-Africanism will give African people the much needed jumpstart towards the full equality and justice that they do definitely deserve. So in many locations of the world, all around the world, African people make up only a small fraction of the population. So for example, in the USA, that fraction is 13.5%. Being such a small number of people living on someone else's land, African people in the USA can only come to the bargaining table as beggars, totally dependent on the kindness and fairness of others. No people have ever managed to free themselves when their land has been controlled and exploited by another people. So fortunately, though, despite hundreds of years of exploitation, Africa is still the wealthiest land base on the face of this earth. They're also the second largest continent in the world and the second most populous in the world. Power comes from wealth that is produced by the land. For no people can achieve equality by begging for it. Wealth gives one the power to demand fair treatment, fair prices for goods and services, which all translates into respect. And finally, liberation. So, Brother Melvin, with the United Socialist Africa, African people will be able to stand up on their own feet with their own wealth solidly behind them. African people will be able to demand justice as well as to trade on an equal footing. And finally, African people will have a new image, one that is of a powerful, beautiful people, wherever they happen to live in this world. So, before China closed its doors and freed itself from Western imperialism, a popular saying existed throughout the West, particularly in the U.S. You don't stand a Chinaman's chance in hell of doing something in particular. The Chinese people's condition throughout the world was so lowly that they were called niggers. Ain't that something?
Uh-huh.
Today, Chinese are thought of as very intelligent people, though. It doesn't matter whether she ever opens her mouth. When a Chinese person walks into a room, you don't even know whether it's a third generation Chinese who speaks only English or someone who has just come from China. It does not matter. The image of that Chinese has evolved along with the evolution of the land base, which is China. So, sisters and brothers at home and abroad, let us all stand up and be counted as a part of the African Revolution to defeat global capitalism and build Pan-Africanism. Join a revolutionary Pan-African socialist organization today. Always.
Yeah,
We always say, Brother Melvin, that's why we say forwards ever, backwards never. We do look
man.
forward all the time, but we look back at our past and we learn. And that's how we're able to push forward.
Now you said a whole bunch in that piece right there, Tasha. While we look at Pan Africanism, I think also part of that struggle, for people who are outside of organization, don't quite understand the concept. Our strategies and our tactics and our objective of Pan Africanism. It's a little something extra for them. So I was thinking, like, maybe if we can break down, like you said a lot in that piece, if we can break down like some of those questions into smaller, like, let's just chunk this thing out and kind of express to the people why we talk about Pan-Africanism so much. Why is the total liberation and unification of Africa under a scientific socialist economic system so important for us? And how is it that that sort of objective, how does that connect to people here, right? So what are some of the questions that we've run across, Sister Tasha, with regards to people who have had their early exposure to Pan-Africanism?
Well, Brother Melvin, I think the most important question people would want to know is, like, well, how can the quest for United Africa help me, myself, like, as a person of African descent, living in somewhere like maybe Kingston, Jamaica, or Brazil, or London, or England, or like even here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, in the U.S.? How can that quest for United Africa help me as a person of African descent?
Right. So a real basic fundamental question. We understand that people throughout the diaspora, we still deal with this piece around identity, regardless of where we are in this world. We still African people. So a liberated, unified, socialist Africa is the only way any African living anywhere in the world can permanently be free of exploitation and oppression. Kind of like the example you gave about China and the Chinese Americans and Chinese people throughout the world. The image that follows them right now is one that is positive, right? Because of what China ended up doing, closing its doors, rebuilding itself, so forth. So it changed the perception of the Chinese person. So for us, we have to do the exact same thing. We are African people, so land is primary. Our land is Mother Africa, which happens to be one of the richest, if is the richest land base on planet Earth. And why do we say it's the richest? Because it has all these incredible minerals and resources right there on the land. Regardless of what we're talking about, you need rubber, if you need plutonium, oils, and petroleum and wood, regardless, all of that stuff, the diamonds, the gold, all that stuff is found right there in Africa. And once we are able to take control of our land, liberate the land from the foreign oppressors. Right now, we have the neo-colonial powers in there. But once we're able to take control of the land again, then from the land we get wealth from all of those minerals that will belong to the people, right? So I remember reading a piece where Malcolm X stated, just because a cat has kittens in the oven, that doesn't make them biscuits. Queen Mother Moore extended that piece and said, quote, well, if an African has its offsprings in America, what are they? They're still Africans. We're nothing more than overseas Africans. Our land base again is Africa, and the wealth that is produced from our land base can be used to forward the progress of Africans, not only at home but throughout the African diaspora, which ensures our total liberation. I know that's a lot, but that's why we say we have to be also part of organizations so that we can break these concepts down even further. But that's a general kind of explanation of why unifying and liberating Africa impacts us here in Milwaukee or impacts us in Hill or Kingston, Jamaica. But here's another question that sometimes come up, Mr. Tasha, and that's why talk about Pan-Africanism, which is a long-range goal, when our people are struggling right now, like our people are dealing with providing for their basic physiological needs, food, clothing, and shelter. Like we're talking about employment, we're talking about health conditions of Africans, and that's not just here in the United Snakes of America, but throughout the African diaspora. Pan-Africanism is a protracted struggle. It's not something that we're going to realize tomorrow or the next year. So what do we say for those people who are struggling right now with, again, struggling with these basic physiological needs?
Brother Melvin, that's a really good question. Now, we do understand Pan-Africanism is a long range, but we still want a permanent solution, not just a temporary solution. So when you're looking for something that's more permanent, it is going to take a little longer, and it's going to take some work. So we appreciate the organizations that are struggling to solve the current problems of our people. But we need these organizations. We need them everywhere. We always talking about organize, organize, organize. There's a saying about when you want to get somewhere and you're paddling, find some people that are similar to you to paddle along with you. So we want these organizations to get together and help figure out these problems in the meantime while we are working for this long-range goal of Pan-Africanism. However, our focus must be on the permanent liberation, so that can only come from Pan-Africanism. So as I stated before, land equals wealth, wealth equals power, power equals respect, and respect equals liberation. And that is our ultimate goal, is we want our African people to be liberated. That's the ultimate goal, Brother Melvin.
No, that's an incredible point in terms of like permanent, and I think that's the operative word right here. We're talking about permanent solutions, not a temporary solution to address the conditions, right, which are the effects or the impact of capitalism, right? So we know that we have to destroy that system, and we understand that, again, we talked about land being primary for us,
Yes.
and have to go back and struggle to liberate our land. And that same that same formula you gave us, the equation of land, wealth, power, respect, liberation, is going to provide that permanent solution again, which is imperative for us to struggle for. And that doesn't,
yes, it is.
That doesn't negate what you said before in terms of the other organizations that are out there struggling, addressing some of those like the material conditions that our people are struggling with right now in terms of poverty, the way it looks throughout the world, the way Africans are treated here in the U.S. So again, we talk about that formula. Once we're able to sort of redirect and take control of our own land and that kind of thing, we begin to be able to change the perception of the African worldwide. And so just like the Chinese, when they come to any table, they're regarded respectfully, like they have something to bring. They're not just beggars asking for an opportunity or asking for a chance. The perception is they have something to offer, and they have something that's backing them, which is this incredible, powerful land base. Yes. What is another question you would say, Tasha, that some people tend to struggle with when we talk about unified socialist Africa?
So why socialism though? Everybody has these different isms. So why is it so important, and how is this socialism connected here? Why not just the unified Africa controlled by African people? Because earlier we did say that Africa is the wealthiest land base. And with that wealthiest land base, of course, you're going to get people that are going to come and try to exploit the people that are on that land base to get the resources on that land base. So how is socialism connected here, and why we can't just say a united Africa controlled by African people since it's their land?
No, Sister Tasha, that's a real important question, right? Why socialism? And for us, we understand what the impact of capitalism is, right? Capitalism is where, you know, the mode and mean of production is in the hand of the individual, like privatized, and you know, for them it's all about creating wealth for the individual. That's under capitalism. We're trying to break that ilk. We're trying to break that whole piece, and we talk about socialism because we don't want to Africanize oppression. We don't want to, quote unquote, liberate our land base and then have a same type of economic system that is oppressive to our people. So now, instead of having Europeans that are in control, that are in power, in control of resources and the modes of production, they own the shops and they own the tools and the manufacturing and all of those pieces in terms of those incredible resources that we have on our land base. We don't want to just put an African face on that, because we already understand under that economic system, it only benefits the very few. Socialism talks about the distribution of wealth that impacts everybody, right? Where everybody is provided based on what they need. Each according to what she needs, right? And that's socialism. So it's not about again taking liberating and removing those oppressive forces that might not share the same melanin in their blood. It's about getting rid of not only that those people who are outside foreigners, but also getting rid of that foreign economic system that does not reflect the interest of the entire population of African people. We want the wealth of our homeland to go to all Africans, not just that 1%, like we see in capitalism right now. Only an economic system in which the people own and control the resources, the mean and mode of production, which is socialism, will ensure that Africa's wealth will benefit all of her people, and then change the perception of the African throughout the African diaspora, if that makes sense.
Okay, so we want to make sure that the wealth is evenly distributed and it's actually benefited, because right now the people in Africa are not benefiting from Africa being the richest and the wealthiest place, right?
Absolutely not. And so that's that piece. So we talk about, you know, the land, but then we have to talk about that economic structure that we need to make sure that we have in place and that we're struggling for. But here's another question, right? How can over 50, states or countries in Africa unite, right? So now let's talk about our land mass. Let's talk about the primacy of land. Like, how do we struggle for that? And is this a utopian dream? Is this just something that, like, some big pie in the sky kind of piece that we want, like an emotional sort of idea and concept of liberating our land base? Is that where it is? Is it just a dream for us? How do we do that? What do you think?
Well, no, it's not. No, it's not a utopian. It's not a dream here at all. But we have to look at like the reality here. People are dying. We are in a life and death struggle here. The struggle for survival. So, as Dr. Kwame Nkrumah wrote, he said that the forces that unite us are intrinsic and greater than the superimposed influences that keep us apart. We have the same history, which is the contribution of humankind in enslavement and colonization of our people. We have that same thing. We have the same current reality, which is the exploitation and oppression. And thus we have the same goal, which is liberation. We will be forced to unite if we want to survive. That is our only way of survival, is uniting. You cannot just do this alone. We need other people. We need organizations. That's the only way it's able to happen. No one single person can do this alone. So although we have the same struggles, all of those same things, just like any other race, we also need those same things to be able to survive. And we have to unite. We have to come together as groups. And Pan-Africanism is the way to go through that.
No, I think that's again an important piece. So regardless of what we're looking at, if we're at home and we're looking at Eritrea, we're looking at um, Ghana, we're Senegal, or we're in Mozambique, Zania, South Africa. The struggle is very consistent. The struggle is, um, you know, to rid ourselves of this neo-colonial structure, for us to understand that, we have um, all the resources in the world to put ourselves right at the top of the bargaining table to address the condition of the African worldwide. And that current struggle is what unite us, like you said. And it's just the will of the people and the power of the people, that intrinsic sort of connection and that intrinsic force that we have in all of us. And so many of our kind of to the point that we looked at our calendar this year, we were heeding the words of the warriors, and we have all these people that we've recognized over this calendar year that have given their entire lives to the liberation, unification of Africa under this scientific socialist structure. And so we understand, we stand on the shoulders of giants. We just moving forward in that piece, kind of like our motto, to move forward forever. It's not some pie in the sky dream. We can do this. It is a struggle for us because we have to deal with external enemy. We have to deal with internal enemy or whatever. But that's why we make sure that it's important that we stay in organization, that we are kind of learning from our past and are moving forward, right? So only through organization are we able, to have the discipline and the analysis, and then to form the sort of strategies and tactics to get us to that ultimate goal. So being a part of Pan-Africanist organization is that piece for that we struggle for. I mean, to your point, Sister Tasha, which was an important piece. We do understand that there are those sort of issues that we see on a day-to-day basis. Again, those basic physiological needs and treatment of the African here in the U.S. and throughout the diaspora that we have to address. But for us, this struggle for a permanent solution, a unified socialist Africa, will address those pieces, because once we have that wealth and that power, we get that respect. So that'll be respect that's provided worldwide, whether you're in Rio de Janeiro or you're in Cleveland, Ohio, or wherever you are. Throughout this diaspora, you'll be regarded as someone with that comes from a powerful people with a powerful land base with those resources. So what would you say with other questions? Go ahead, Sister.
I'm sorry. I was actually interjecting with what you were saying, because you were saying that it was important to join some type of organization, because that was my next question. I was just wondering, and other people may be also wondering, what can one particular person do to bring this Pan-Africanism into existence? I know you already stated, like, first and foremost to join a revolutionary Pan-African socialist organization to help, politically educate our people. But what else would help that?
Now that again, super important organization, right? There throughout history, we can't find a single case where an individual has been the single marker of some type of significant change. It's always been the struggle of the people, the will of the people, and people who in an organization, right, that provided that sort of structure for them to even complete the work. So we need to, figure out how to get on the same page in a monolithic unity around fundamental questions around who are we as a people, let's struggle with identity, right? So, back in the day, and even as we were young, like I know right now we see ourselves as Africans that are born in the U.S., but there was a time when people, and still to this day, people don't call themselves. I'm talking about African people here in the U.S., and I'm not talking about continental-born Africans. I'm talking about the generic term Black people in the U.S. do not like to be regarded as Africans, because we had all these sort of concepts about what Africa is and what Africa represents. You hear African booty scratcher and all these sort of negative connotations that come from the idea of being African and that identity itself. We have to address that, right? Which is important. We can only do that in organization. We need to talk about who our enemy is or who our enemy are, and that's like I kind of brought it up earlier. We have that sort of external enemy in terms of capitalism that exists right there, and then sort of our internal enemies that we have to struggle with at the same time, right? The oppressive forces that exist within our people that exploits our people at home. We have to talk about the gender question, which is super important for us to address, and the treatment of African women, which has been adopted from this sort of this capitalist structure. So those other isms that come out of capitalism that are offshoot of capitalism, which then creates sort of an internal enemy at the same time as we adopt some of those, the thinking or the concepts that comes out of capitalism. We have to rid ourselves of that. Then we talk about our objective of Pan-Africanism within Pan-Africanist organization. Then talk about our strategies and tactics, why it's important to meet regularly and to be engaged in political education that eventually leads to the revolutionary struggle. So I would say, in putting this all together, if we already belong to one of these organizations, then our next step is to sort of build this coalition force of Pan-Africanist organizations that Kwame Nkrumah had called for years ago, right? So Pan-Africanist socialist organizations have to build this coalition of Pan-African organization forces. That's why you see we reaching out to other throughout 2021, we've reached out to other Pan-Africanist organizations, and we'll be engaging in that work of calling for this sort of coalition force of Pan-Africanist groups and organizations to figure out how we come to the table as different organizations with the same objective, to address, the needs regardless of where we are, like I said, throughout the African diaspora. And then, so that we can more effectively politically educate our people, and thus to move quickly to bring into existence a unified socialist Africa. So kind of in closing, Sister Tasha, we hope that, addressing some of those questions that people tend to have about why Pan-Africanism, why Pan-Africanist organization, why we have committed ourselves to talking about this, to educating our people, and to pushing this constant message around organization and Pan-Africanist organizations and that kind of thing. And we want to just take this time to really say thank you to everyone who has, listened to any of our podcasts over this calendar year, or from any of the 48 previous podcasts that we've produced and published. We really appreciate, your listening to our piece, and even giving us feedback from time to time, and sharing with us what you might have learned, and even pushing us to talk about issues that might be more germane for you and the spaces that you occupy. So I like to say that's 2021. We're looking ahead for 2022, beginning in January and all throughout 2022, at times with the help of invited guests. Our focus will be on the theme of our 2022 calendar, Sister Tasha, which is the African world is on fire.
Wow, the African world is on fire. That's going to be an amazing calendar.
Yeah, no, that calendar is, I think it's pertinent for where we are right now, Sister Tasha, and talking about, we've been talking about the African diaspora. We looking at the continent as well, and what does it mean to be on fire right now? But fire also illuminates, right? It brightens. So for us, it sharpens our focus. It gives us an opportunity to kind of sharpen our focus and our determination, and to struggle for what we've already talked about today, and what we've talked about previously, which is Pan-Africanism. But throughout this calendar of 2022, we'll be highlighting the current reality of many places throughout the African world, from Libya to Ethiopia, Congo to Azania, which is South Africa, from Haiti to Brazil, and even these United Snakes of America. So that's our 22 piece. Yes.
All right, so join us next month where we will introduce and explain our focus for the year, which is the African world is on fire. Only a united socialist Africa can extinguish it.
Meanwhile, visit our website, PanAfricanRevolutionarySocialistParty.org. Email us at panafricanrsp@gmail.com. Like us on SoundCloud.com. Visit us on YouTube. Leave comments on www.facebook.com/PanAfricanSocialist.
And then remember, only an organization can properly educate their people, which is so desperately needed. So remember, organization is the key. Join us, the Pan-African Revolutionary Socialist Party, or some other revolutionary Pan-African socialist organization. A union of African socialist states is on the horizon.
All hail to Mama Africa, our love shall never dissolve. Africa, there she is, can never hide. Oh mama, Mama Africa, say it. Mama Africa. Yeah, how are you doing, mama? Yeah, Mama Africa. Long time no see you, mama. Oh, they took I away from you, mama. Oh, Lord, long before I was born. They took I away from you, mama. Oh, Lord, long before I came on. Mama Africa. How are you doing, mama? I wanna know now, Mama Africa. time no see you, mama. Mama, I said, they took her away.